confirm the visibility of the slide and we'll start.
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you. So I guess we just discussed about the parking fees and other associated income for the airport, like the landing, parking as housing charges, etc., which all we have seen that are dependent on the size of the aircraft and levied directly from the aircraft companies. Now, as opposed to this, there is what is called as the user development fee. This is charged to the passengers directly. But then, as a passenger, we don't pay it directly to the airport, but we'll pay it as a part of the ticket fare. So in many of the tickets, you can see a user fee. There will be actually a this one called user fee, which indicates that it's not the airline which is taking it, is being used by the airport. So airlines will collect it and hand it over to the uh, airport, the airports which are associated with that particular flight. So user development fee is levied at the Indian airports as a measure to increase. The purpose of it is to increase the revenue of the airport operator. Increase the revenue in the sense. We know there are revenues primarily from the airlines, which they pay for taking off, landing and parking, etc. But then there can be sorry. But then there can be still shortfall in the operational income of the airport. So there may be a gap to be bridged to have a sustainable operation, economically viable, feasible, and sustainable operation for the airport. So for this, there is a provision to collect an amount from the passengers as the user fee. Now, it can obviously vary from airport to airport, though it is also subject to the regulations of the Regulatory Authority of India, the Airports Economic Regulatory Authority of India, which we discussed in the previous class, AERA. So they have, for major airports, they have given the charges which can be levied. So this AERA directly determines or puts regulations on what should be the fee for the major airports, and others come from the aviation ministry, the Ministry of Civil Aviation. That is for minor or non-major airports, the limits that or the regulations regarding what they can charge as a maximum of user development fee from the passengers. The numbers come from the ministry directly. So this is the scope and the objectives and the method of implementation of what is known as user development fee. Again, just taken an example. Guess this was this given for two categories, international and domestic. If I remember correctly, I took it from this one of Chennai Airport. Rate per embarking passenger is for any international flight they take 667, and for domestic it's 166. So what it means is that as part of your ticket fee or ticket fare which is going to the airline, you will be also paying rupees 166 if you are using Chennai Airport as part of your domestic flight. For example, if you are flying from Chennai to Coimbatore, you will be paying 166 to Chennai Airport alone, and that will be charged through the air ticket, the fare that you pay as part of the air ticket, and is multiple times for any international passenger, 667 for that particular airport. So the user development, sorry, and this also can vary from time to time. Again, it's an adjustment in the airport revenues. So subject to the rules, regulations, this can vary and it can be determined by the airport subject to the approval from AERA or the Ministry of Civil Aviation, depending on the category of airport. So that is how the user development fee is fixed and implemented. You can see this videos, a couple of them, which sort of talk about the various revenues, the operations, etc. The business side of that, commercial side of operation of the airport. So they are important, they are informative, interesting also. I request that you go through these videos. I just leave the link in the presentation. So once I upload it, you can see these videos at your leisure. So that completes the topic that we were discussing in the previous class. Now we'll move on to the new topic in the syllabus. Before that, if there is anything that we have to discuss related to the airport revenues, charges, the income of airports, etc., we can discuss now if you have any questions or comments. Okay, then we'll move on to the new topic, environmental impact and regulations. The environmental impact of airports is a topic of, or rather it's a concern of the airport management at a higher level. So it's not directly related to the processes that are going through in the ground transport system or in the terminals, etc. But it is more closely associated with the overall functioning of the airport and its impact on the surroundings. Now, when you say the surroundings, it can be in the air, in the surrounding atmosphere, as well as in the community that lives around. So these are very important issues, the environmental impact of the airport. But then, as with regard to or the where it interfaces with the management of airport is probably not on the day-to-day basis, but at a higher level, which is related more to the design, the development, expansion, improvement of facilities, etc., related to the airport. So, as a person who is in charge of the overall operations or the development or the associated activities of an airport should have a clear understanding of what are the environmental impact and how regulations are made to address them. So that's important from the overall a larger picture of the management of airports, and that's how it fits into the topic of this course. Now, the most important, probably the most direct impact of airport operations are obviously related to the emissions from aircraft engines. Now, we know that all the aircraft engines work on thermodynamic cycles, which have invariably the process of combustion as part of it. Now, as we know, they are all based on a Brayton cycle, which has combustion as the source of energy. That is the source, the cycle or the engine takes energy from a natural resource, which is fuel, by the process that is called as combustion, right? So as part of combustion, which is a sustained, let's say, spontaneous series of chemical reactions, there is going to be a stream of products which are eventually through the nozzle led to the atmosphere. So this is, as we know, this is what is called as emissions from aircraft engines. Now, these emissions are important, particularly, I mean, in aircraft operation at any level, that is any altitude, that is during takeoff, land, cruise, ascent, descent, etc. At any level, this is important from the environmental perspective. and they are even more important from the perspective of the operation of the airport. So that's what we are looking at here, the importance or the emissions that come from the airport, the aircraft engines, which pollute the air around the atmosphere, the air around the airport. So the most important category, critical category, as the GHG category of gases, the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, as we know, are the ones which can destroy the structure of the ozone layer around the atmosphere, by which can be harmful in the long term. And that's we know that all the climatic changes, the global warming, etc., are associated with closely related to the impact of greenhouse gases. The emissions in general from the aircraft engines are constitute of not only the greenhouse gases, but others also, like other particulate matters and other products like hydrocarbon salts, etc. So we know the greenhouse gases primarily are carbon dioxide and to some extent the oxides of nitrogen, nitrous oxide, N2O. Is also categorized as a greenhouse gas. In fact, oxides of nitrogen at any level are harmful to human beings when inhaled. They are even more harmful than carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, certainly, and even more than carbon monoxide. So even very small amount of the oxides of nitrogen are usually categorized as NOx. They are harmful for human body. But in addition to that, nitrous oxide is also identified as a greenhouse gas. So these are, say, like unburned hydrocarbons, oxides of sulfur. Sulfur, because the fuels contain some traces of sulfur as part of their compound, as part of the chemical compounds that they have. Then CO2 and CO, obviously, as a result of the combustion. So, and in addition to that, you may have soot, the particulate matter, like microparticles, micro or nanoparticles of carbon, which are suspended. So all these are constituents of aircraft engine emissions, and they can affect the air quality, the health, and welfare. In fact, a notable exception in what I have written there is H2O. H2O, that is, we know that in any combustion reaction, and since all of them are using hydrocarbon fuels, there is going to be finite amount of H2O vapor. Now, H2O is not a pollutant from the perspective of human inhaling, the breathing that we do, but then at greenhouse level, for greenhouse gases, it is also, or rather, from the perspective of ozone layer, H2O is also identified as harmful. Why I'm not including that in the list of gases here is that at the lower level, that is atmospheric level, that is at the land level, where we have the airports, the impact of H2O is not very significant. It's not significant unless when it raises and goes to the atmosphere, goes up in the atmosphere. So, but then at the flying altitude of aircraft engines, H2O is important because it can harm at that altitude. It can get directly, or it can directly affect the structure of the ozone. Anyway, so NOx, hydrocarbon, CO2, CO, etc., can have impact on the quality of air, and also the health of the people who are staying around, and overall welfare of them. So, but then how we can get rid of it? Yes, the airport can, or the airport authorities, persons who are in charge of the management of the airports, cannot influence the design of engines, right? That is a headache of aircraft engine manufacturers. They cannot improve the design of the engines. They cannot influence the overall aerodynamic design of the aircraft so that the efficiency becomes better, so that the fuel consumption becomes lower, etc. So all these are areas where an airport management has absolutely no role. But then what do they can influence? They can influence the operations within the airport. That is, strategically schedule the flights, the takeoff, landing, etc., to avoid delays, to avoid and minimize the idling time of the engines, idling time of the aircraft, this one, etc., and then to avoid congestion in and around the airport. So that is from the perspective of the operation of the airport. There should be a focused move to optimize the traffic around it, to regulate it, to schedule it in such a way that the pollution is minimized. So that's what we mean by operational measures. That is, which can be accomplished through management, proper appropriate management of the air traffic services. Now, these are all about pollution. So that is air pollution. Now, in addition to that, there is also noise pollution. In fact, from the perspective of the community, I guess we have discussed this once earlier. From the community perspective of the community, the people who are living around, probably the most visible disturbance, the most visible pollutant is noise pollution, right? Because the smoke or other, say like GHG or the other gases, etc., certainly can have an impact on their health in the long term. But what they more apparently or more visibly, more directly feel is the noise created, particularly during takeoff, landing. So the noise that is created is too high and too irritating, and certainly they can have physical, psychological, and social impact on the quality of the life of the people who are living around. And it has been long identified as a important source of excessive noise pollution created by human activities. So again, how to minimize the voice and noise? Obviously, there is a lot of work going on the aircraft design side, the engine design side, etc., to minimize the engine noise. But then there are all activities which are beyond the control of the airport management. So from the perspective of the airport management, again, scheduling or making sure that the takeoff, landing, etc., are not, say, for example, do not, as much as possible, do not interfere with the, say, like sleeping time of the people around, etc. But you cannot avoid that. There will be several night flights, but then minimizing the disturbance to people around is all that the aircraft or the airport management can do with this in this perspective. And here also the scheduling or the management of the traffic, etc., are important. Another way, so the pollutants, direct pollution, gaseous pollutants from the gaseous and particulate pollutants from the engine, the noise pollution. These are two categories. Now there is a third category of pollution which is caused specifically due to the operation of the airports, which are related to the utilization of the land around, the waste disposal, and issues related to the congestion of airport. Land usage, very obvious, because a large area is being encroached by constructions that are associated with the airports, So there may be wetland around, and they may be sort of made to or converted to construction sites, and similarly agricultural land, etc. Anyway, in whatever form it is, there is going to be an encroachment of the land. So land utilization, which can eventually have an impact on the environment and the social life, is is an indispensable part of the construction and the operation of airports. Similarly, on a more regular basis, the waste disposal, the operation of an airport where you have people coming in tens and thousands, tens of thousands on a daily basis, there will be a lot of waste that is generated by the movement of passengers and also by the aircraft, the airfield operations, maintenance activities, etc. Construction, demolition, all this will have, these are activities which are sort of regularly associated with the operation of the airports. And they certainly all this will have a lot of waste to be disposed. So waste disposal, which is a result, which is a recurring activity, which happens almost on a not almost always on a daily basis, and which can have an impact on the quality of the life of the people around, is another avenue where the airport impacts adversely affects the environment around that. So waste disposal is also related to the operation of airports. And then airline and air passenger congestion. Congestion always is because of primarily because of delays and operational issues of the airport. Now, when that happens, so you can have aircraft congestion. That is, you may have too many aircraft, say, waiting in the runway with their engines on and waiting for takeoff. And similarly, to some extent, uh, uh, taking turns in air to waiting for their turns to land, etc. All this happens because there is an idling period, there is a waiting period before which they can come to the airport or come to halt, or they can switch off their engines after landing, or they can leave after uh, taking off. So all these really act, all these delays and congestions lead to excessive pollution in environment. So this is actually the aircraft pollution due to congestion actually belongs to the first category that we mentioned about, that is the emissions. But then the emissions will be more than regular operations. The emissions will be even more intensive when there are delays and congestion. So that's why they are categorized as the delay or the uh, pollution due to congestion is categorized as a separate source of pollution. And in addition to that, passenger congestion, any flight delays, schedules, and etc., or clash of schedules, etc., will also have an issue of too many passengers being accommodated or being crowding the terminal at the same time. Now, this also, when passengers have to spend more time in the airport, they will be using more disposable stuff within the airport, etc., like bottles and food packets or whatever it be. So the continued usage or crowding of the airport in a given time may also lead to excessive pollution and waste disposal, etc. So this also is an outcome of congestions and delays. So they need to be separately categorized and addressed as a source for airport pollution. So these are the few categories which are which are important, in which the airports impact adversely the atmosphere around, the communities around, the quality and health of the people who are living around. So obviously a lot of this have to be addressed by the policymakers and regulators. So airports cannot be left to design or to function on their own without giving attention to the environmental aspects. Because naturally, for any industrial outfit, for any company, we discussed earlier that eventually airports also airport is also a business, right? It should make revenue, particularly with increasing privatization. It's a company which should which will aim to make profit. But then if you leave them alone without forcing them to address the environmental issues, by default, there is likely to be a lot of uh, deviation or negligence on the environmental issues. And that's the reason why there should be stringent rules and regulations and implementation of them to ensure that the airports operate without causing too much of pollution, and take into the to consideration interest of the society, the well-being, and the health of the local community, etc., along with the general environmental considerations. So, in order to avoid or to minimize the health hazards and other disturbances to the people, the policy making which is related to the airport operation have several stringent regulations which make sure that, or which insist that there should be a proper coordination between the airport operations as well as the issues, the environmental and health related regulations. So this is where the role of regulations come into the functioning of the airports. It's not just functioning of the airport, even their design, the future expansions, development, etc. In fact, when we discussed about the airport development plan, we had discussed that it should also include or accommodate for environmental issues as well. So all the laws and regulations are intended to stabilize the operation or to minimize the negative effects of aviation activities on people and the environment around the airport. So, as I just mentioned earlier, from the business perspective, purely from the commercial perspective, an airport or the airport management would like to use their full capacity and make use of the maximum volume traffic that the airport can handle. So, but then that may not be in the interest of the environment around, may not be in the interest of the health of the people around. So that's where the regulations step in, which sort of regulate all these activities and put stringent measures and force them to consider all other aspects, environmental aspects, while they plan the activities and the operations in and around the airport. So ICAO has put this as a has given this a lot of emphasis in their, actually they have a working group which from time to time evaluates, renews, and makes whatever required modifications and revisions to the policies worldwide, and all the member nations are duty bound to follow them in their respective airport operations. I think I should stop here. We'll go to the to a couple of presentations today. The afternoon session, I'll be making use of to continue the Viva. So afternoon, I'll not be having this class, but I'll use the session for the Viva as per the schedule that is already put there. So for now, I would request team 1 and 2 to make their presentation. So if team 1, I would request team 1 to make it first. If time doesn't permit, we'll have to postpone team 2. So team 1 can present right now. Before that, if there are any questions about environmental aspects, you can raise us. I'll stop sharing the window right now. If no questions, team 1 can please start their presentation. Can share the window and then share the display and start their presentation. Team 1, please. Anybody? Others, Shantivasini, Ashwin, Giridhar, Aishwarya, Sri Supernai, Kevin, Krishna. No response. I can see Kevin and Krishna at least online. So what's the plan? You're presenting now, Krishna?
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah. Now you are audible. Yeah.
I think we were not aware that we were supposed to present today. We are not ready.
Sorry. Did I not give the topics last time? I was under the impression that I gave. I think I remember discussing the topics. Did I not?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I've been given.
You were probably absent last time. Anybody else? Kevin, do you recall what we discussed last time? I think I have given all. Say, yeah, I certainly remember. I gave this one's about that. I guess it was more focused on PPP in airport management.
The details
Sorry.
of PP details.
Exactly. I've given to all the 4 teams, right?
I guess yes, last class.
So one, if you are not ready now, at least by tomorrow you can make it. What is the status of 2? So group 1, I request you. I have given. Okay, I will upload that. I don't know whether I uploaded it. I'll upload it right away. So you may please see your topic and get it ready for tomorrow morning session. Group 1.
Yes, sir.
Group 2. Group 2. What's the status? You also missed it. Not sure or don't remember or what. Group 2.
Sir, last class is absent.
Sorry. Repeat that. Last class. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Ramanathan, please repeat. I didn't hear what you said.
Sir, is it okay if we do it tomorrow, sir?
That's fine. Okay. So then we shift the whole thing to tomorrow afternoon. We'll continue with the this one. Meanwhile, I'll if I not uploaded, I'll upload the previous PPT in which the titles are there again. So in case you have not noticed it, you may please do that. Right. Okay. In any case, I think I'll stop here now. We'll meet in the afternoon for live those who are listed. Okay, thank you. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.